talking about this science fiction movie, The Last Scout. This one directed by Simon Phillips. Now imagine, if you will, 50 or so years in the future, after nuclear war, the Earth has become inhospitable, and it is implied that the war between, it appears to be China and America, has left it essentially barren. So the remaining humanity have taken to the stars in hope of finding a new world. And ultimately what's happened is there's been a variety of kind of spaceships that have gone off into the cosmos trying to find a planet where humans can settle on. And they've all gone in different directions, and this one the story focuses on a ship called the Pegasus and its small crew, as they are on a mission to kind of go and have a look at this particular planet to see if it can be kind of terraformed and obviously used as the second Earth. And unbeknownst to most of the crew, we find out the ship doesn't have enough fuel to make it back to the fleet, so it's pretty much a one-way ticket, and if it doesn't work out, then they're pretty much all dead. And when we get to the kind of our destination, we find out there may be even more threats in place, and things may not go according to plan. So what do we think about The Last Scout? Okay, so let's talk about the movie as a whole. This is a low-budget film, so don't be expecting things that are kind of, you know, on the line of Star Wars or Star Trek. It's a low-budget, kind of straight-to-DVD movie. But I've got to say I was impressed with the level of production design for that kind of value of film. I thought they did a great job of the externals here when we see the shots of the sort of spacecraft and stuff like that. I thought they did a pretty decent job of making some quite good models and some kind of you know, some CGI effects. I thought worked pretty well in the context of it being a kind of a low budget movie. And I thought there are some fairly decent CGI shots here as well. So the externals I liked, and even when we get into the internals, it does get a little bit B-movie, you know, flashing lights on the dashboard that really don't appear to have any kind of function other than just to be flashing, stuff like that. You know, the helmets appear to be repurposed, motorcycle helmets, stuff like that. But it still looks kind of fun and still fits within this kind of like the B-movie science fiction films, particularly if you've watched stuff from like the 80s. When we used to get a lot of these kind of like, you know, these science fiction space opera type movies, you know, with kind of somewhat cheesy effects, but they're still fun. That's pretty much the kind of the vibe of this film. Now this isn't an action film, and it's a little bit unsure about what it wants to be, I would say, because it kind of makes it feel like it's going to be a science fiction film where we may encounter aliens. Then it almost starts to feel like it might be a horror movie when we find there's this other ship in space that appears to be abandoned and no one knows why, and we go to investigate it, and there may be something going on there. It almost feels like maybe it's kind of veering towards a kind of like Event Horizon type movie, and then the latter half of the movie is almost like kind of a murder mystery film. So it definitely kind of like pings across different sort of genres, but never really focuses on any one particular. So it's both a good and a bad thing to a certain degree. I will say the cast is relatively small here, but I do feel like it's to its benefit, because you do feel like you get to know the crew members pretty well, and they all do seem quite well-rounded characters. And I'd even go so far as to say I really enjoyed some of the relationships between the different crew members, as they do seem quite genuine. I will say some of the characters are very broad and do seem kind of like caricatures rather than characters, but nonetheless you still kind of like them to a certain degree, and I do find even the characters that are set up to be somewhat of an asshole, should we say, were still likeable in their own right. I have to say the main problems here is that there are lots of kind of like dumb logic here really, and things that don't really make sense. And for example, they encounter a Chinese boy aboard this other ship, and they're struggling to kind of you know, translate it basically. And I thought, this is technology 50 years in the future. We today have Google Translate, so why are they struggling so much to translate Chinese dialogue? It seems a little odd and stuff like that. So there is there's definitely some kind of like weird logic choices here in the story steps that the film just doesn't really go through, shall we say, and just to have kind of like move it to the next plot point really. It's just really, forget about that, just kind of move on. So there is a lot of dumb decisions here, but it still is kind of fun. It's not really an action film. It does feel a little bit slow in places, but and I do feel at some points the story doesn't really know where it's going. It doesn't know what it wants to be. I appreciated that it tries to have an element of intrigue and mystery in this film. You know, and it kind of reminds me of a kind of like a TV movie that you may have seen in the kind of the 90s and stuff like that. But I still found I kind of felt the world building was good enough. The characters were interesting enough to kind of keep you engaged throughout the story. And although the actual plot and the pacing of the film is somewhat lacking, I was still interested in kind of invested in these characters to obviously watch it to the end and kind of still care about the outcome. But the outcome's a little cheesy, if I'm completely honest. And when it's all said and done, you think, that film seems somewhat inconsequential, and you don't feel an actual lot has actually happened, and there you go. But overall, I would say it could have been a lot worse. And I feel this film, if you like your low-budget science fiction films, you can see, you know, a ton of these kind of films that are a lot worse than this. So I would give this movie a 5 out of 10, which is an average rating. So for me, 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.